My name is Ben Kendrick. I work in Franklin. I've been a part of the, I live in Franklin. I design warehouses. I design the interior of warehouses. So I say whether or not you need a large robotic automated storage retrieval system, little geek plus robots that run around and carry shelves, or whether or not you really should still be doing things with manually. I started out in this industry when I was 18, and I've been in it off and on since then. But I've done a lot of other things since then. I started out really with the data side of things, doing a whole lot of analysis on the data side. So I got heavy into databases. And so a lot of this reflects my my biases towards databases in general. I also began working a great deal with what are called warehouse management systems. Warehouse management systems, the big granddaddy of them right now that everybody uses, it's called Manhattan. It costs millions of dollars. I do not work for Manhattan. It's not even my favorite warehouse management system, but tons of people use it. But I have worked with many warehouse management systems over the years, and so I understand kind of what makes them tick. I was also for quite a while actually a certified Microsoft instructor, teaching things like Access and Excel and Word and Outlook and SharePoint and all those kind of things. And we got deep into database design, especially in the Access classes when I was learning that. And so I've done a lot of things on the database. And so anytime you're looking at a new application or you're looking at a need, my brain automatically goes relational database. Just that's how it happens.
When all you have is a hammer.
Yeah, when all I have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. However, I have some theoretical underpinnings for this, that anytime you're looking at something where you do have to store data, start with the data and start with the design of whatever it is that you're going to be working with the data. So the problem that came up in our house, I have 5 children. They currently range from 14 to 23. And they are all at home currently. Some of them left, and then they came back. So they are all currently at home, and we go through a lot of food. And one of the problems always was, it's time to go shopping. And I would watch my wife. My wife came to support me in this. I'm very grateful she's here. Her name's Robin. She would go downstairs with a piece of paper and just start looking at the shelves. And we've got, I should have brought pictures. We've got all sorts of shelves in our basement with food on it and other things, and it's messy. And so you go through, well, do we need more tomatoes? I don't know. And so then you try and make a guess. Do we need more tomatoes? And the answer is sometimes, almost always yes. But then the question is, well, how many tomatoes should we buy? Now, as a part of the church that we're a part of, they used to recommend that a goal was to have a year's worth of food, of non-perishable food supply, just in case. None of us really made it, but that was the ideal goal. And so as a part of our history, we've always wanted to say we want to keep and rotate a good supply of non-perishable food in our basement. We don't do quite as well as we used to, but part of that space. My thought was, ooh, this could be a database. Now, the other thing about this is my wife, knowing that I love databases and do so many things with that, she wanted to play with it. She wanted to have a database she could play with. And I, having taught databases in the past, I always knew, unless you care about the data, you're not going to do very well in whatever you're trying to do. When I was teaching Access classes, my least favorite student was someone who came in, usually a young, early 20s girl, and said, the previous secretary built this Access database to run our small business. She quit or moved on, and now it's my job. What do? They very rarely learned anything because they didn't know what was going on enough to understand what their database was supposed to do.
You have to know the application.
You have to know the application before you can understand how to put data around it. So I built a database around one of her biggest problems, which was buying groceries. So the upshot, I'm going to show you the end before the beginning although this is the ugly report. This is not the report that she uses because it's not pretty, for one thing. But this is the report that you end up with. No, this is not the report you end up with. I'm sorry. I said that. The to buy list. So in a category, there's an item. We've set a reorder point. This is the point when the inventory in our basement reaches this point. Then it goes on this list. Then there's total on hand. Apparently, now this is
You're in bad shape if you have negative back.
yes. That usually means somebody didn't scan something in right. But also the database I'm working off, this is not my live data. You can see I've got the word test environment up here at the top. I don't have the right CSS in here. That test environment on my actual test environment in my house is a big green banner test environment that goes to my testing database. So I cloned everything and brought it in here. So where I built this, my databases, my live databases are, this is one of those things where you create proof of concept and then you can't get rid of it. My initial database server where I've got a lot of different databases is running on a Linux Mint system that I need to upgrade, and I haven't done that yet. It's out of date, but so it's running on a Linux Mint system. And the PHP web system that I have runs on a virtual machine that is only accessible from within my house. It does not need to be publicly accessible. So it's accessible only within my house, and it runs on a virtual machine of Ubuntu server that I have running on my desktop. I just simply took a copy of that VHD and then created on my laptop a MariaDB server that I could connect to, and I could import one of my old test databases. So it's running in here. So yes, -1 Diet Coke means there's a problem somewhere. Now, so maybe I should have her describe the process, but she does Kroger online orders primarily to get the large grocery run of the week. And you see her on her computer, and she has the to buy list on one screen that looks prettier than this because it's in a different program, and the Kroger website on another screen, and she just goes back and forth. What do I need? And just does the orders. How much time do you think it saves you?
A lot. I don't even know. But part of it too is that then you have to worry less about the kids remembering to write things on the grocery list when they bring up the last one or something.
Oh yeah.
Chaos monkeys.
What's that?
Give it your own chaos monkeys.
Yes, we do have chaos monkeys. Yes, that's so what we have actually. So we'll get to that. So first of all, I thought, okay, the database is in MariaDB. I love MariaDB. There was whatever it was, PenguinCon, where she talked about PostgreSQL or whatever last time. I watched her I didn't go, but I was able to watch her video on YouTube. And Postgres is fine, but I'm a MariaDB guy. And I'll tell you the one reason why I'm a MariaDB guy. When I was looking for an open source database to use in 2008, MariaDB supported a little function called group concat, which allows you to group by one field and then take all of the strings of the other field and stick them together into one field that you've grouped by. And for my warehouse analysis, that is something I do all the time. And I needed it badly. I didn't have it. I was using Microsoft Access until I hit the 2 GB limit, which everybody hits that 2 GB limit eventually. And so I was looking for a database to use for that. And MariaDB and MySQL had that function. And it was the killer function. Postgres didn't have anything for it. I think they got it in 2015, which is called string ag, if anybody knows anything about Postgres functions. And string ag became the SQL default. SQL Server only started supporting it in 2017. I mean, it was, and it has a bug, by the way, that I found 2 days ago, which is screwed up. Anyway, I'm not going to get into that. Screwed up a whole bunch of my analysis at work, because we're a Microsoft shop, so we have to use SQL Server at work, and it drives me nuts. But anyway, so I built the database in MariaDB, and my initial thought was, let's use LibreOffice Base, connect to the back end in the database, and use it to do everything. And it worked. It does, but it doesn't work really well. Because I knew PHP, and in order to get it to do a few of the things that I knew were fairly simple in PHP, you had to drop into the LibreOffice Basic. And I don't know LibreOffice Basic very well, so I kind of gave up. But the reporting functions and the reporting ability of LibreOffice Base is so much prettier than what you can do in straight HTML easily. So the report that Robin runs is in MariaDB, or is in LibreOffice Base. That's really the beauty and the idea behind the inventory system, is that the database is the center of the system. Reporting can be completely separate from the process that you do for the input and the output, because the real system is the data. I keep trying to convince my warehouse clients of that their database, the system is the database, not all the pretty screens, because then you can access it and do different things and nobody believes me. Okay.
Well, that's where, that's the weakness of, access.
Yes.
Is that the database, well, one, it's not really meant as a multi-user database.
No, it is not meant as
and the database and the, reporting and forms and so forth are all one.
They're all in one package and
You can't
access,
really
so you
use
don't.
other tools.
So I spend quite a bit of time on the LibreOffice subreddit and answer a lot of questions, usually about Base, the database there. And it's a very interesting thing talking about that conceptually, that the database engine and forms, reports, and queries are two completely separate things. That the database engine is its own thing. So just to kind of show you what the database itself looks like. So in the tables, and this always surprised my students when I was teaching database design. When you go through, how many of you have done, out of curiosity, how many of you have done database design before? You've gone through formal classes and things. Okay. The interesting thing when you're looking at your normalization rules is you always end up with more tables than you think you needed at the beginning.
Yep.
Always. And so to do what is admittedly an incredibly simple, straightforward inventory control system is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, or did I miscount? 13 tables. So what do you need to track when you're doing an inventory system? If you're trying to keep track stuff. Now, first you have to make decisions. Are we going to track expiration dates? This is supposed to be in a house. The answer is no. Why don't you track expiration dates? Because if you track expiration dates, then every single item that you bring in that has its own unique expiration date has to have its own record in some table somewhere.
Right.
Because now you're not just putting you're not just putting inventory against a UPC code, you're putting inventory against a UPC code expiration date combination. Then two, when you scan in and out, and I deal with this with sometimes in my clients where they have to deal with expiration dates. When I'm working with warehousing clients like pharmaceuticals, grocery, heck, meat. I'm in the middle of doing a big beef producer right now where we're talking about this very thing. What you can scan easily is important. Well, the expiration date, we can't scan. It's not on there. So we just made the decision, no. Question.
Back to them is when they put the expiration date on the package, why don't they put it in a code of some sort, machine readable code that you can scan or anybody else can scan?
So there was the question, why don't they put when they put the expiration date on, why don't they put the expiration date on a code? The answer to that is there's two reasons. One, the barcode, the UPC barcode that we currently have, its character density is not high enough to do that within a reasonable period of time. Two, when we try and do that, it's extremely expensive to add another label when you're talking about hundreds of millions of labels. It's because not only then in the places where we do have to do that, we have to apply a label with the expiration, or with, actually what we usually do is the lot code. So the lot code is attached to an expiration date, and the lot code then is scanned and verified. And if there is the slightest smudge in that barcode, it rejects, is sent back, and relabeled. Because if you have to track lots, it is absolutely perfect. So yes, it's a good question. Now, one of the things that they may start to do that I have read about recently is we may get away from the barcode as on our groceries, and they may switch to QR codes. When they make the switch to QR codes, that may be the advantage. But then when you are in the production facility, so I'm going to pull out a barcode. I have learned in the past 2 years that we've been running this so much more about UPCs that I never wanted to know. This is a package of frosted shredded wheat from Kroger, and it has a UPC on it. Now they order these in massive quantities. Hey, show it to the people there. There we go. They order these in massive quantities. If they were to put the lot on here, then they would have to, they print these right now where they make the boxes. They would have to print them after the fact, which they can do, but then also, now this is an interesting thing. When Kroger changes the box, meaning they put a new design somewhere on the box, if it's significant, not if they just change the graphic on the back, no. But if they change anything about the nutritional information or anything like that design, new UPC. Even if it's the same size, new UPC.
Surprisingly often.
It does happen surprisingly often.
I deal with it as very minor, like 1% minor, less than you do, but you know, I'm working at Home Depot, we have 1 million products.
Yeah.
And so every time we change packaging, it's a new UPC code.
It is. I have been, Home Depot in their forward distribution centers has been my client. So I have dealt with that.
So I would assume that you can deal with the expiration dates in a physical way on the shelves, simply by putting the newest stuff at the back or something.
We try and do that as much as possible, but we have some expired jam in our, although it's jam.
So what did Gary say? I couldn't hear him.
He said, we deal with it physically where we put new stuff in the back and old stuff, and then we move stuff on the front. We try and do that as much as possible. Some of our shelves we have kind of in the middle of the room, so there's a back and a front, and you put on the back and pull towards the front. That's the freezer. Okay. So what we decided to actually do this is the base. There are two main tables that we use. The first is UPCs, because UPCs are consistent across everything. Everything uses the same UPC for the same thing. There's UPCs. The second thing that is the base is the item. So here's where you think this item that I've got right here, and this is where we have to make some decisions every time we bring in groceries, and especially something new. This is shredded wheat. If we buy the name brand, it is also shredded wheat. So when you look, I'll go ahead and open up the UPCs table. So you can see this here. I've got a UPC. I've got a brand ID. So I'm keeping track of the brand. I have an item size that is based on the number written on the package. I have a unit of measure ID. Now, this is where I say, am I measuring ounces, fluid ounces, pounds? This is mostly for reporting purposes. Not that we use these reports a lot, but it's mostly for reporting purposes. Then there's a package type. Is this a box? Is it a can? Is it a plastic bottle? Is it a bag? so that we can have an idea. Then there's an item name ID. Which item is this UPC associated with? Well, in this case, whatever barcode that is, it's associated with an item name. And then there's a note. And the reason there's a note is because here's where we have to make a decision. Let's suppose I'm buying vanilla sandwich cookies from Kroger. Do I really want an item name just for vanilla sandwich cookies? I have to make the decision. And we've made the decision, no. We are going to have an item just called sandwich cookies. And all of the sandwich cookies, and even a few that aren't quite sandwich cookies, like the Girl Scout cookies, they all go in that same item. We choose to. So this is where making decisions of how you use a system makes a difference. So somebody else using this exact same system may make a different decision. We've chosen to do that. Where we'll see that as we go through is actually in soda. So there are certain sodas, specifically Diet Coke and Pepsi Zero, Diet Coke for Robin and Pepsi Zero for me, that we have very specifically because we need to know how much Diet Coke and Pepsi Zero we have in the house. Most of the rest of the sodas just go in a soda item with a note specifying exactly which one it is. It's an internal decision that we've just made to not complicate our life in that way. At some point later, and we've actually done this, we may go in and reassign, if we create a new item, we reassign the UPCs to that item, and then in our history, it all changes. Now, that's actually bad. If we were a business, being an internal house, we don't really care. Okay. Then we had to decide how many locations do we want to deal with? Do we want each shelf to be a location? Do we want to subdivide the shelves so we know exactly where every single thing is? And we said no. I put it in here. We can if we want to. But right now I just have basement storage room and the upstairs bathroom where we put some toiletries and do some storage of toiletries, and that's it. So you go down there and the kids still have to kind of look around and find the right thing in the storage room, but it's not that big of a room. If we started having significant food storage in 2 different rooms, then it may be more important to have that location. Or if we had a very large room where you had to go around and we might subdivide them. We have chosen not to make things simpler, but we could.
You have the flexibility.
But we have the flexibility to do so. Yes. Okay. Any other questions on the database structure or anything about the database, how I put it together, why I made decisions?
Got a question. Why did you choose to use indexes for your unit of measure rather than outright saying these are the units of measure?
The reason I'm using indexes for that is because I want to make certain, well, there's 2 reasons. One, the absolute strict rules of normalization for database design tell me I should. That was one of the reasons. I wanted to do this as an exercise to make sure to see what it was like. And now I'm using it incorrectly, but in some ways, but it was an exercise. The other one too is that every once in a while I have to type one in. And if you accidentally mistype it and it got in there, then you have 2 different units of measure that are actually the same thing. I deal with this all the time and I hate it. I am currently doing a job for a very, very famous engine company. When we got their data, they had one entry for every SKU for each language that they supported. And in one of the fields, the description field, it was the second description field, sometimes the word centimeters was spelled out, and sometimes it was abbreviated. Sometimes inch was spelled out, and sometimes it was abbreviated with just the quotation mark. Breaking these things apart into and forcing it into separate tables within the database ensures consistency when you bring the data back out. That's why the normalization rules exist the way they do. Admittedly, it makes the overhead of the queries higher, because now you have a join on your tables rather than just keeping the data in the tables.
It makes it easier, though, to construct a drop-down with all the possible units of measure.
It absolutely makes it easier to construct a drop-down with all the possible units of measure, which you will see in my interfaces in here in just a minute, where I have done exactly that. So, but a good question. Any other questions about database or database decisions? Okay, so let's move on to process. So on my homepage here, now I did this in PHP and HTML, and I have to say, my sense of aesthetics suck. This is not pretty, but it's functional. So what we have, because it's running in just a web browser. Now, first of all, I have not hardened this against SQL injection or anything like that. I don't care. It's inside my house. If someone's inside my house and wants to wreck my database, they would do it probably in a much worse fashion than doing SQL injection on a web page with a hammer on my server. So it's not pretty. The first thing that we do, though, is we receive. Now, having my storage room as one location allows me to hard code that location into a web page so that when I click receive to storeroom, the only thing I have to put in here is the barcode. That's it. I don't have to select a location. I don't have to do anything, and I'm making a choice. I receive one at a time. So if I buy 5 cans of beans, we scan 5 cans of beans. It's the way they do it at the grocery store, and there's a reason for it. When you scan 5 cans of beans rather than putting in a number, well, you did this accidentally, and I'm grateful you did. We need beans because she made chili the other day. Really good chili. And so we bought beans. But as you can see, we bought light red beans and dark red beans. If you're just bringing a group in and scanning and putting a number in, what's the possibility that you look at this and you say, oh, I've got 4 cans of red beans? Very high. So we scan them in and out one at a time. We'll do that here in just a minute. But I'm going to show you just really briefly. I do have general receive where I can put the UPC, I can put in a quantity, and I can pick my location. Sarah's cabinet, we were thinking of doing that. My daughter has some significant food intolerances, so she has to have some fairly special food, and so we thought about having a special cabinet and keeping track of that. We gave up. Yeah, we have the cabinet. It's in the kitchen. Anything that's in the kitchen and that we buy and that comes into the kitchen and never hits the storage room, never hits this system. We've chosen, again, this choice, we have chosen not to track it if it's never in the storage room. Now that means that our actual, when we run reports, our actual consumption is a little higher perhaps than what we see, but only for those items which like go straight in the refrigerator or that, you know, that don't hit the storage room all the time.
We do have a freezer in the basement.
And we do have a freezer in the basement that is part of the same location storage room. Okay. So I'm going to go back to receive single to storeroom. So when I come in here, we set up this scanner. It's a barcode scanner, very inexpensive. I think I bought this at Micro Center. So USB barcode scanner. We set up Robin's simple laptop.
$100, $30, $500.
30. So the question was how many, how expensive is it? 30. We have 3 barcode scanners in the house, none of which I spent one of which I spent a lot of money for. The Bluetooth scanner that I have, I think I spent 120 for that.
It's also for work reasons.
It was for work reasons. Yeah, I was using it when I was doing some testing of a certain WMS about 5 years ago.
You probably don't have a QCAP, right?
No. Now, the nice thing, I spent a little bit more for the one in the basement. We have just a netbook, literally first generation netbook running 32-bit Linux Mint, which they don't even support anymore, in the basement, set up on a little stand. But the barcode scan that we have there fits into a cradle. And when it fits into the cradle, it turns on. So you don't push the button. It's just always on, like a grocery store scanner. So all you do is just hover something in front of it and it scans it out. That netbook is almost always set to pick single from storage room. So if I'm going to receive these red kidney beans. It didn't come in. Why didn't it come in? There we go. Okay, now I'm going to do something here. So there's one. Now, this is not my live system, so I don't really care. Here's my next one. And we always do this. Come on. Oh, because I clicked out of it. That's right. You hear the sound? People online probably didn't. But listen. Oh, there it came in. It's kind of hard. It's faint on these speakers are bad. It's something I've learned on. Yeah, I did. Because my PHP, because I'd clicked out, my PHP sets that item or that field as the default field the next time it comes in. So it comes in. So you can see now we have a quantity on hand of 2 kidney beans canned, Kroger 15.5 ounces. Here's all of my here's all of my UPCs for the kidney beans. Sorry, the old teacher in me. I actually taught public school for a little while too. I've done a lot of things. Always wants to be in front of the screen to teach. So anyway, I've got 3 types of kidney beans, 1 light red, 1 dark red. No salt added. 3 UPCs. When it's something that I've learned a lot when dealing with actual warehouses, the sound matters. Having a system make a sound matters because that's communication. So our sound, I know it was probably faint in here. This one will come in. Oh, you hear the uh-oh? There it came in. Something's gone.
Yes, I heard the uh-oh.
You heard the uh-oh? It meant
Yep.
that it didn't recognize the UPC, which is weird because I knew those ones were in there.
That's great though. That's that, if you get going with scanning stuff,
Yes.
you might not be looking at the screen closely.
I think
You'll hear that.
it's because I'm it's kind of, I'm asking this this computer's 11 years old. It's from it's 12 years old. It's from 2012. And I'm asking it to do a lot today. And so it's a little slower than normal, but usually you can scan through pretty quickly. But we've trained the kids, listen for the sound. If you hear the uh-oh, that means something went wrong. Either that UPC was not in the system or there was some other error. So you need to check. But if you're just scanning along, you can just scan along and listen for that sound. It's also important because, especially in the basement. No, maybe. I'm going to type this one in manually just to see if it's the 0, 1, 1, 1, 1, 0, 1, 1, that 9704. 704. Nope, it's not in there. Okay. So what do you do if you get a UPC that you've never seen before? Now, when we're doing this fast, you set this up and you deal with it later because you're trying to get stuff downstairs, especially the stuff that's frozen. So, but right here, there's this button, Insert UPC. It automatically fills in the UPC for me. I click down here, and this is a Kroger. The item size is 8 ounces. And it's yeah, so here's all the drop downs that I create from all those tables. And it's really easy just to query those tables. This is an ounces. It's a can of tomato sauce. I click go. Now I could put an amount in right here. I'm actually thinking I'm going to remove this because it's misused. Yeah, so we click receive, and now it's in. And there's the second one. All right. Which means they've changed something on the label since I did this database.
See that there's, you know.
Yeah.
So here I've got of Kroger 8 ounce. There's this one that ends in 42 that I had at the time this data was created, which again, this is an old data set that I pulled in. It's not my most current data set. I had 13 on hand. Well, now I've got 2 of this new item. But if I go to my item maintenance where I can add new items if I have to, and I come down to tomato sauce, it opens up a new tab. Here is all of the UPCs that I have for tomato sauce. There's Meijer and 3 Kroger and a Hunt's with their sizes, with their quantity on hand. And right here, if I know, okay, shoot, we've made a mistake. We've picked too many or we forgot to bring some in, I can adjust the quantity right here. I can put a quantity in, update the inventory, and it will change the quantity. Now, all of this is recorded.
I was gonna say, that makes me a little itchy.
In transactions. I have a transaction table. The transaction table has a transaction ID, which just counts up. It's got a transaction date. It's got a transaction type. Receipts. Now, when I look at transaction types, inventory checks are 100. An inventory expand, which I'll get to in a minute, is 101. A move is 102. A standard receipt is 300, and a standard pick is 400. These are codes that I use to represent different areas of a warehouse when I do analysis. The 100s, 300s, 400s. Nobody else uses this. This is mine. But that way, in the transactions, I can absolutely recreate the reason why I am where I am. So if I do an adjustment, well, it'll have transaction type 100. You can see that initially everything was 100 because I had to bring everything in as an adjustment when I first set up my system back in 2021. It's been that long. When I do anything, when I do receipts, it's 300s. When I do picks, it's 400s. So that way I can tell what kind of transaction I have been dealing with. Does that make you feel a little better about it? Okay, good. I also do have an inventory table, where I track the inventory. If these two get off, well, then I actually trust the transaction table and recreate more than the inventory table. Actually, what I really trust is going down and counting. That's what I really trust.
So do you have cycle counting?
I do have cycle counting, yes. We are due for a cycle count. Cycle counting, for those who aren't aware of the nomenclature, it's where you go through an inventory in a warehouse and you count a location. Now there's cycle counts and there's yearly counts. Technically what we have is more like a yearly count. Cycle count means you count every location a certain number of times a year on a cycle. And if there is a problem where the count doesn't match what your system says, then an inventory person has to go into the data and try and figure out why it's wrong. Because that is reported to banks. It has tax and other implications.
So, because our inventory, our inventory is online.
Yes.
Literally can go to HomeDepot.com and see how many screws of this particular kind I have.
So the comment is at Home Depot, you can go online and see all of the inventory.
So it's really important to keep up with that, because we have some shrinkage.
Of course, there's shrinkage, yeah.
Peter pulls this in and goes, oh, that looks like this, and they get entered that way, but that wasn't the right number.
And we run into that all the time.
So once a year or so, depending on somebody's moving upstairs. Way up the bells of the organization. Time for inventory.
Yeah.
So happens once a year or less.
So the comment is that every so often, somebody up in the upper echelons of Home Depot says, it's time to check inventory, once a year or less.
We do send returns, all stored up about 50,000 items or so.
Yeah.
And we write them all.
Yeah. And you have to.
It's BFD.
When we do it, it now takes us about an hour to do our whole storage room.
That's impressive. What's the penalty?
The penalty with the kids, if they screw with the system, is we take away snacks. Yeah.
Exactly.
No more cookies.
The inventory says 4, but there's really only 1.
We don't buy more.
Well, and that's the natural consequence. If they forget to scan stuff out, we run out and.
Because we didn't know to buy it. All right. Not yet. No. No, my son, he likes, he accompanies me here sometimes. He's really into game development, but he had to do something with a database, an SQL-like database a couple of months ago. And he came to me and said, Dad, how do you do this? I was so happy. And he learned some. Now, I will say, to his credit, now he's really good at computers and he helps out and he does all these things. Okay. I asked him a couple of weeks ago, I said, can I trust you yet to give you the administrator password to the servers? And he thought about it for a minute and then he looked at me and he said, no. Hey, that's fine.
Now he's got plausible deniability.
He does. He does.
And adjusting.
How much time do I have?
45 minutes.
Okay. All right. So let's look at, I'm going to receive a couple. Does anybody else want to try this and receive? You do it all day. Okay. Well, then let's look at, actually, I'm going to look at this one, which is interesting. This one I'm going to have to put in. This is, because I know we've never bought this before. So this is apple soda. So when I receive this, I've got to cook into here. The nice thing about the apple soda is it's made with real sugar. There's no high fructose corn syrup. So we like this from Kroger. So I'm going to receive it here. And of course, it's not in there. So let me put it in real quick. Going to insert the UPC. This is
Remember the last one.
Kroger. Yes. So what I did is the UPC variable in my PHP in the form there, the UPC is put in as a hidden data, which is passed in post from one PHP page to another. So I do almost everything with post. I don't know if you'll be eagle-eyed in just a little bit, you'll see what I use with get, but almost everything else is post because it's easier to do that way. Okay, so this is Kroger. The item size is a 12-unit box of soda. Note, these are 12-ounce cans. Okay.
Oh, bulk packaging is interesting.
Okay, I have something for this. Okay, so now I'm going to receive it and it will actually go into the system. Receive single. There it is. You can see all of the sodas that we have. There's quite a few in this one here. So 12 cans. However, when I pick these, most of the time I will pick this whole thing and take it upstairs as a unit. But maybe I want to pick individual cans. Now I'm going to verify that the can is a different UPC. I didn't verify that in the store. Maybe I should have. Okay. Yep, it's a different one. Not all are, strangely enough. When you buy things at Costco, it's hit and miss which ones share a UPC and which ones don't.
That's irrational.
I agree. I totally agree. So this is Kroger.
Big box didn't say 12.
You agree about what?
What was that?
So like in this case, the box could have the same UPC, but quantity 12, right?
Yeah, in the Costco stuff.
Yeah.
If it's Costco stuff, you scan it in one and then you just keep scanning out the individuals, or you have to scan it in like 12 times.
Most of them are different.
This is a
You agreed with
12.
what?
I'm sorry?
You agreed with what?
Oh, the having the same UPC on a master pack and the individual insides of it is dumb. That's dumb. Okay, this is a can of soda, and this is apple soda can. All right. I am not going to receive them. So this, I still don't have a PHP page for. The place where we see this most often is canned chicken. You buy a 6-pack of canned chicken. It's one UPC. Each can has their own UPC. We do this a lot. So I'm going to go into dbvert. This is why this is still a little bit of a work in progress. And I'm going to come in here to TUPC children. So here I'm going to add my parent UPC is the box. Where's the UPC? There it is. Okay, there's my parent UPC. Here's my child UPC. And here is the number of children per parent. I'm going to save that. I really do need to create a page for this, but it's fairly easy to do in a SQL, client. But anyway, okay. So now that that is done, you will notice that I do have I've got a couple of procedures. Well, I've got one here. Expand UPC. So in expand UPC, this is, though, if you know anything about procedures on SQL, I start a transaction. Essentially, I have some variables. I make certain to insert into transactions. I create the transaction first, and I have 2 transactions. I have the inventory remove transaction that pulls the 12-pack out of inventory, and I have the inventory add transaction, which adds 12 cans into the inventory. That is transaction type, as you can see right here, 101. I also create a GUID, a short one, just because you can, that matches on both of those transactions in the transaction note is the same GUID, so that if I ever have to go back and audit, I can check my remove and my add transactions and match them so that they're there. And then I update my
What's the
inventory.
GUID?
A GUID is essentially a long random string of characters that is generated by the database, which is, the normal ones are, I think, 32 characters long, and they use all of the letters of the alphabet, both capitals and lowercase, and the 10 digits. And I think there's like a 0.000 something % chance that they'll be repeated in the known, across the world in the next 1,000 years or something like that. So it's something that is used to generate automatically numbers or identifiers which are extremely likely to be unique. A GUID. Okay, so I've created that, and I'm going to come back here to this. I'm going to go back home. I'm going to explode master packs. I have a master pack here, one Kroger soda. Ooh, I forgot to say that's apple soda. Yeah. Well, I had it in the note. This is the note. I forgot to put apple soda in the note for the master pack. That's my problem. I need to go in and edit that. And I don't have a good way to edit it from here. So I'm going to click expand single. Says, do you want to confirm it? Yep. I'm going to confirm it. It's going to think for a little bit. I now have 0 parents on hand. And something went wrong because I should have child on hand here. This is being very slow, I think, because I'm asking too much of this particular machine.
In that regard, is this, you think, in your situation, do you think this is lightweight enough to run on a single Raspberry Pi?
Oh, sure. Yeah. The question was, do we think this is light enough to run on a single Raspberry Pi? Yes. I would say this is light enough to run on a single Raspberry Pi. The web page, of course, is anything you can access a web page from, you can do that. So, well, let's pick single pick from the storage room. Let's see what happens when I pick some soda. Come on. Yeah, it didn't come in. Something went wrong with my I hate it when that happens, when your demonstration fails.
So it failed to create the children?
It failed to create the children.
Did your transaction take care of
Rolling back?
not removing the parent?
No,
Uh-oh.
I've got a problem. I need to fix that.
That one's still a work in progress.
I just did that last week. I haven't worked out all the bugs. But did you hear the sound? So it's a different sound at pick than it is at receive. And that's important because if you're downstairs and someone receives something downstairs and they forgot to get off the receive window and they pick something and they hear the wrong sound, that's an indicator I need to go back to the right screen and then work with it.
So one thing that you might do is add some images to make it very obvious what function you're doing rather than just the text at the top.
Well, what I have is it's a different color.
Oh,
So receiving, receiving is blue,
okay,
picking is green.
cool.
I'm actually the one who did that.
Yeah, she is.
Very good.
So cycle counts, I have to create the cycle count, and maybe I'll just do that real quick. I have to create the cycle count again in SQL in the SQL client. I don't have a screen for creating it, but I do have screens for running the cycle count. When you run the cycle count, all you do is scan, 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 and more than one person can be scanning at a time.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so if I've got 2 laptops in here, I'm scanning. Then I run a report that compares the cycle count to current inventory. And I have the option to say, now there's 2 reports that I run. The first report, items that you have scanned that is different from what's in inventory. If it's the same, it doesn't show up. I don't care. If it's the same, we're golden. But if it's different, the second one is items that you have in inventory that you did not scan. Well, those are things that probably are gone, and now you need to zero them out. Now, what we use that for sometimes, like when Robin's going to Costco, there are certain, especially snack foods that we get from Costco. So if the kids have not been scanning out properly when they finish their snack foods in the basement, because the basement's where my kids have their computers, is in the next room over. So if they're not scanning out properly when they finish a box of snacks, which is probably on us, we really should tell them, don't open a box down here. Take it upstairs and go get snacks up there. But they're teenagers.
They're lucky they can make it to the room.
Yeah. So sometimes I will open up a cycle count and we will scan everything that we can see. And we will scan the empty box. We'll check empty boxes too. We'll scan, the empty boxes and sometimes we'll scan that because they don't throw them away either. They just leave them. So we'll scan things and then run the report, but not update anything. It's just a comparison to say, okay, what are we really looking at here? Or we'll update only what we've scanned. And then we check against the empty box and say, okay, we didn't scan any of these, we didn't scan any of these, but we don't run the zero out thing on the other side, because that would zero out all the rest of our stuff that we didn't care about in this particular count. We didn't count the whole storage room, just where the snacks are. So let me set up a cycle count real quick so you can kind of see that. And again, I need to create one for this. Count groups. Let me open that up. The problem is count groups take quite a bit of resources. So I'm going to add. I'm going to put in today's date. 2/15. Whoops. Oh, I'm not going to close it. Sorry. Has to be null. Save. Okay. Now back on the main, I'm going to go to my count groups. I have a process count group. And I click process. Let me scan stuff. Yeah. The sound. I think this uses a different sound that I forgot to put on my presentation machine. Yep. And it should be changing as I'm doing this. Come on. Oh, we do have these. Okay. Oh, didn't they? Okay. Check results. Items that don't match. And I need to change these buttons. Really, I need to, and this was something that she almost ran this one down here on our live database. Would have been very bad. So right now, hey, it says I'm supposed to have 6 of these Kroger kidney beans. I only counted 2. I'm missing 4. I'm supposed to have 6 frosted shredded wheat. Tells you how much shredded wheat we go through. I only counted 1. I'm down 5. If I click this run update, it will adjust these values. Items not scanned showing inventory. Well, there's a whole lot because I didn't scan my whole room. So I don't want to run that one because that would zero out all of those items.
Can you adjust just individual items, or you can only?
If you want to adjust individual items, you go to, say, item maintenance, and let's look at root beer. Here's my root beer. Here's the individual UPCs, and I can enter an amount for an individual item right here.
It might be convenient to have it on the other screen.
Might be. Might be. And here's the last transactions on root beer right there. So
Nice.
Again, you can access this because it's in a database. You can access this from LibreOffice Base. You can let me do that real quick. Let me show you how easy that is. I'll just even set up a new one.
30 minutes.
Yeah, I'm not going to fill that 30 minutes. Come on. Okay. I am going to I'm going to connect to an existing database. It's going to be JDBC. Next. Hold on. I have these in my notes. I never can remember them. Anybody else just keep a notepad with all the things that you use regularly? JDBC, MariaDB. I need that, but not that IP address. What are we here? We are 10.16.151.190.
What is a JDBC database?
16.151. It didn't work this last time because it's listening on that particular IP address. Okay, the question is, what is a JDBC database? JDBC stands for Java Database Connectivity. Because LibreOffice is it was heavily based in Java. It uses a lot of Java libraries to do database connections. So the two common ways to connect to databases if you're not native is ODBC, which there is Linux ODBC, but I haven't been able to get it to work very often. And then there's JDBC, Java Database Connectivity, which is work everywhere I've tried it. So that's one of the reasons I use that. What's that? Yeah. Yeah, JDBC : MariaDB : / Oh, do I have colons between those? I made it. Thank you for seeing that. And then you have to put in, unfortunately, the driver class here. How did I do that? That was.
All this admin in the room that can't type
I'm gonna test my class. Oh, I need to put the database name, which is food storage. Okay, next. Username. Password is required. Test my connection. Nope, that's not it. Really glad this at least doesn't show it to you right there. Okay, finish. Sure. All right, I now have a LibreOffice database connected to via JDBC to my backend, where here now I can write visual queries. So if I wanted to say, let's do TUPCs, and I need brands, and I'm going to connect brand ID to brand ID. I want my UPC, I want my brand, I want item size and unit of measure. I run that, and I can get this here. I, of course, can write reports off of this. I can create forms and insert if I wish to. The other kind of fun thing, I don't know how many of you know this with LibreOffice, but if you save a query and you register your ODB database with your computer, when you go into the spreadsheet and you want to create a pivot table, you can create a pivot table directly from a query in the ODB that you've registered, including any parameters or anything else you put in there. So it's not as cool as I make it sound, because unfortunately, if you try and do it with really big data sets, it's slow, but it's actually really cool. If they could speed it up with large data sets, it would be an incredible thing, because you can create pivot tables so easily just from saved queries.
So when you say slow, it's talking about.
It depends on how big the data is. I tried it on a data set that was 900,000 rows, and it was about 5.5 minutes. Oh yeah, but when I just simply copied the same 900,000 rows into Excel on my work computer, it was the matter of 3 or 4 seconds. I hate to say it, but Excel still kicks Calc's butt as far as speed of larger data sets. I've tried so hard.
What was the database? You used the JDBC connector, but
Oh, no, no, no. In the one that I'm talking about, it was a different day. It was at work. It was at work. I was, yeah, it was a real day. It was, yeah. Well, yes and no. What it was is on my analysis data server that I have, which is separate from my live data server where all this stuff runs. I was generating simulated pick data for a warehouse to check to see how 6 mini load aisles would interact with each other. Because when you get interaction of kicking out mini loads are what do cases automatically in 150-foot tall aisles, and they go and get it robotically. Problem is when you're building a pallet from those mini loads, well, if you have to get a pallet out more or less simultaneously, you don't have the same number of cases out of every aisle, and so some aisles have to wait on other aisles to finish. And so I was running some simulations. So I was generating 1 million lines of data to see how that worked over a long period of time. And because I was doing it in my own system, I could get it out fairly easily into Calc, but then it crashed. It took 5 minutes to do anything. I connected to my backend database using dbeaver on my work computer, exported it to CSV, brought that into Excel, and it was a matter of seconds. So it was really unfortunate. About 10 seconds. And import was another 10. And then the pivot was 3. So it was 23 seconds versus 5.5 minutes. It's unfortunate, but it's just the state of it for large data sets. I wish it weren't.
you didn't sort it or order it before
Nothing. No, and this has been a problem with LibreOffice Calc for a very long time, that its data model, Excel's data model actually does use a database engine in the back end anymore when you do anything significant like that. And LibreOffice Calc's doesn't.
They don't have users that have really large databases.
Not usually.
So they don't worry about optimizing for really large databases. Because it's an edge case.
It is. In the LibreOffice use universe, it is an edge case. Very much so. So anyway, so yeah, I can save this here.
It is a what case?
It's an edge case.
Edge.
Yeah. So it's LibreOffice is not optimizing their calc engine for large data sets, because the overwhelming majority of people who use LibreOffice are not using large data sets. And most of those who would also use LibreOffice and need large data sets are probably just doing the SQL anyway.
Right.
So, yeah. That is my inventory system in a nutshell. Any questions?
I have a few.
Okay.
So,
So I'm gonna repeat the question to those that are online.
well, the first thing was an observation, and that is that your simple HTML interfaces are responsive.
Oh, yes.
So you can use them on a phone screen without having to write fancy,
I can. Yeah, those HTML interfaces are very responsive. You can use them on a phone screen. The problem is I haven't optimized them for mobile. There's some code I need to put in there to optimize it for mobile. So it is little. You have to zoom way in. Now I have done it in our, when we're receiving stuff, sometimes I've actually plugged a USB-C to USB adapter into my phone and just received on my phone. So it is possible, but you do have to zoom in.
So then I had a couple of ideas for if you get bored and want to add features.
Okay, what are your ideas?
One of them would be, since you don't have a login
Yeah,
for doing receiving and picking and so forth, would be to use a camera to do face recognition. And you can store in the transaction table who did the transaction.
so the suggestion, if you didn't hear it online, was because we don't do logins, put a face recognition on the computer and have that be your login and log out. That would be, I need to make BJ do that. I need to make BJ do that. My son, I gotta have,
We talked about this with the.
Another,
yeah, with the snack food problem, it'd be really nice to know who's, maybe we just need to have a camera in the storage room in general. To
another
watch the
idea
snacks.
is repurpose a phone. I wondered if you could repurpose a phone, an old one, and make it recognize the UPC code, because I played around with that and it can be done.
Yes, and I have done that as well. I have a barcode reader app on my phone that I use that will read barcodes.
Mhm.
And so I have considered trying to do that, to make a phone app that uses the camera to go in and out and use it. We've got several old phones that we could just leave somewhere plugged into power and use that instead of the netbook that we have, or have it in a different place up in the bathroom.
Yeah, I was doing it for
Have everybody have it on their phone, make an app for it.
yeah, I was doing it for books, actually, using it for the ISBN barcode.
Yeah.
We have a database.
Yeah, we do have a database for our books. I didn't show you that, but we do. We did put a location on all of our shelves. That was Robin's doing. She's the one who started that and said, you will do this. So we were going to do it in LibreOffice, but to get locations in LibreOffice, you had to pay for it, I think, is what it was. So yes, we have a book database. We have 1,300 and something books. Yeah, and they're on locations. So
For anybody who wants a book database that doesn't want to write their own, there's one called Readerware that's pretty good.
Readerware.
Yeah.
Okay, I hadn't looked at that.
So my other suggestion.
Another suggestion, yes.
But the ease of doing this depends on the Kroger ordering website.
So just a comment, it says ease of this may depend on the Kroger ordering website.
So it's inefficient to read off of a report and have to type in the ordered items.
Let me turn around. Let me turn this around real quick so you can just say it.
So it's inefficient to have to read a report and type in the items you want to order. So ideally, Kroger would have an API that you could connect to and push one button and order everything. Or alternatively, I suppose you could have some sort of software that kind of manipulates the screen, the Kroger site, to do that.
Yeah, we
But
could
it'd be much better if it was an API.
go through and select, I want this from Kroger and this from Kroger and this from Kroger, and they're okay. Send that out, see if it's there. The problem you'd run into is because barcodes change, like we just found with the tomato sauce. If we send the tomato sauce barcode that we have, but the Kroger barcode has changed in the last week, it would say it's not there.
I ran into that with order again.
Yes, when you do order again, sometimes
It's like, you know, it fits in your cart when you go check out, it's like, it's not there, and you go, and it says substitute with this. It's the same thing with a different barcode.
same thing with a different barcode when you do order again sometimes. Yeah. Now, the interesting thing, that is actually one of the primary, not that specifically, but that idea that when we as humans work with this stuff, we don't work with barcodes. We work with items. And so that's why the basic level of the database is actually the item and not the barcode. The barcode is in many ways a subset of the item, because I'm interested in getting tomatoes, not the barcode. And so it's the item that all of the reports are run by item, not by barcode.
Wouldn't they have to do barcode just because if somebody changed the font on the label?
Yes, that one.
Same item, but
Same item, somebody changes the font on the label, new barcode.
inflation.
Or shrinkflation, you change the amount, so instead of 14.5 ounces, it drops to 14 ounces. Okay, question?
Okay, So, produce, like,
The question is, how do we handle produce? If it's frozen produce, it has a barcode, it goes in the freezer. Fresh produce never leaves the kitchen, it doesn't go into the system. Now, the one thing that I have been asked to do, and this one's difficult. Frozen, well, let me rephrase that. Meat that you buy that then goes into the freezer. When you buy meat, it's all different weights. And so it has a unique barcode on it for that particular item that was created in the butcher shop. We've kind of struggled with this one. What Robin has asked for is, instead of scanning the barcode that's on the item, that I create a little placard next to the downstairs screen, and that when we receive it, we receive a generic pork roast. So and then it's not associated. And then when we scan it out, we just scan pork roast rather than anything else. And because I'm not doing any of the error correction that's built into UPCs, I can put whatever I want in the UPC category. So I could literally have letters in there. No, I can't, because I did it as a numeric. So I can't have letters in there, but I don't have to have a UPC that resolves well with the error checking. With a UPC, the last digit is actually an error check digit, that there's a sum that you have to come. I don't remember exactly what it is, but there's some sort of algorithm that says I've scanned it correctly because the last digit is the result of some math on some previous digits. That's why when you look at a barcode, the first and the last digits are actually outside of the barcode, because they're both check digits of some sort. But I'm not doing any of that, so I can put anything in there that doesn't have the check digit. So I just need to find something that's not really a UPC and throw it in there for that. But yes, those odd types of things would be difficult if I had chosen to do it that way, produce and things like that. But produce is really easy, because when she's putting together the grocery list, it's a short walk to the refrigerator. It's a much longer climb to go downstairs, especially because in a 130-year-old house, the stairs come down and they're narrow, and then they run into the old foundation, and then they're only about 18 inches wide.
Wow.
So you have to kind of go sideways to get down the stairs. That's why she sends mostly the kids down there to, get things out of, or me to get things out of the storage room.